Welcome to the Grit and Wit podcast, hosted by Maury Wood. He's got stories, sarcasm, and a soft spot for real life and dad jokes. Around here, grit builds character, wit keeps you sane. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Grit and Wit podcast. I'm Maury Wood. This is episode 5. We are talking today about a story I have told a lot of times to people. I wrote about it in my Substack blog early on. This was, I think this was like in the first month I was writing because it was a story that hit home with me, and I think a lot of people can relate with when faith is involved. I think a lot of times, sometimes God's greatest gifts are His refusals. I think a lot of times we there's a song I think Garth Brooks sings called "Unanswered Prayers," and I think early on in my walk with God, I looked at unanswered prayers, but they're really not unanswered. They're really no's. God does not answer a prayer. I believe God answers prayers in 3 ways. He says yes, which is a lot of times what we want. Sometimes he will say no, which is at the time upsets us, but always usually works out. And then there's other times that are wait. Currently, right now, I'm praying for something that I'm hearing God say wait a lot, and it's good because from the place I am now, I think it's a lot easier at my age and my spiritual maturity wise. It's easy to look back and go, okay, every other time this has happened, something good's always happened. So that's where I'm at. So let's just dive in. So about 5 years ago, give or take, I was teaching in a county south of where we live. I was teaching technology. I have, for those of you who might not have known, or I might not have even mentioned it, I currently work in like instructional technology for a school system. But before that, I've been an English teacher. I've been a social studies teacher. I've been a third grade teacher, which did not really jive well with my sarcasm and my sense of humor because third graders, you spend a lot of your time explaining sarcasm when it was fun. I loved having a classroom of 14 or 15 kids compared to 28 or 29 kids in sixth grade. But I really liked the older kids, and that's where I thought my wheelhouse was. So anyway, I taught for about, at this time, I had taught about 12 years total, I think. I got my master's in administration in 2017, and I was one of these people. I wanted to be an administrator. A lot, sometimes, nothing wrong with it. Some teachers will get their master's for the pay bump. I really wanted to be an administrator. I, in my past career life or whatever you want to say, my jobs, I worked at a grocery store when I was 16 to 18, and I became a department manager there. I went on to work in retail, went into management there. So I would just say I believe God has made me a leader, and I really enjoy it. So fast forward to 20, I don't know, 5 years ago, like I said, an assistant principal job came up in my county that I was working at, and I had been praying about it, and it just kind of fell into my lap. Let me rephrase: the position was open, so I thought, "Oh, this is going to be a great opportunity. This is me and God are on the same page." That was my first mistake, looking at God like, I filled the form out. Can you just sign off on this? So that was not really a great thing. So I did the interview. Interview went great. I spoke to some other people. They thought the interview went great. Then a couple of days later, I was teaching and my cell phone rang, and I recognized the voice on the other end, and the way they said my name, I knew it was not going to be good news. So that day, I did not get the job that I thought, frankly, that I deserved it. Once again, another mistake when you're dealing with things of God. I believe 9 times out of 10, if you read stories in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, a lot of the people that were blessed by God, they went through some stuff before they got to the apex of whatever it is that they were doing. Uh, Joseph is a great example of not having a great run of it. I mean, for those of you who don't know, Joseph granted, he was a typical little brother. He ran his mouth, and his big brothers didn't like him. But he got thrown into a pit. He got sold into slavery. He got rescued from that kind of, but then somebody else accused him of a crime he didn't commit, so he got thrown in prison. Then he helped some people out in prison, and they were supposed to help him get out of prison, and they forgot about him for a few more years. And then eventually Joseph got out and became the right-hand man to Pharaoh. But that's one of the things I've always heard is if you read the story, things would happen to Joseph, but then it would say, but God. And a lot of people, including myself, say those are two of the most powerful words in the Bible, but God, because a lot of times when we go through things, we try to handle it and it doesn't work out. So, getting back to my pit moment, I guess you could say, I was not happy. I went and got my kids. They were going to the same school system as me as I was teaching. So I went and grabbed my kids. I put them in the car. My son automatically knew something was wrong. He asked me what was wrong. I said, I'm fine, like we men do a lot of times when I was burning up on the inside. I got home. I told my wife what had happened, and I went driving. What I do a lot of times when I need to talk to God or pray is I will drive around and basically, I don't want to say pretend because God's all around us, but I will drive around as though God is in my front seat and I will just talk to him. And that day, as a friend of mine said, God can handle us when we come in hot. I was coming in hot. I was literally telling God what I think he should have done. It was going to help our family. It was going to give me more responsibility where I could be more of a leader. It was just, in my opinion, it was a great situation. It was very, at the time when I was talking to God about it, I felt like he just was sitting there listening and not really saying anything. And I think sometimes that's what we need. I think sometimes we just need to get the anger or the hurt out of our system, and God can handle that. So, a couple of days later, I was still, let's just say, not happy. So, I began looking for other jobs because I felt betrayed. I felt cheated. Uh, just pick a negative feeling, and that's what I was feeling. Hurt. I told my wife it felt like someone had died, or even when my parents got divorced, that's the feeling I was feeling, that anxiety and stress level. So I reached out to someone in the county that I live and frankly just said, here's my resume. Do you have any jobs? And I was offered a job making relatively the same amount as the administrator job that I did not get. I also was able to work from home, which I'm going to be honest, when they offered me the job, I didn't even read the fine print. I was like, okay, let's go. And then I was told when I was finalizing everything, now you do know this isn't an at work, at home job. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? It is hard for us, I think, at least it was hard for me, to reconcile God's goodness with a closed door. But then I looked at it from a parenting standpoint, because this is what this whole podcast is about, is grit and wit and parenting and marriage. How many times, those of us who have kids, we've told our kids no. At the time, they're not happy about it, but we're doing it for their own good. Great example, about a year ago, well, almost a year ago in October, we were going to take our kids to Universal Studios. A hurricane happened to coincide with our trip, and we had to cancel the day before we had to leave. Our kids were not happy with us, but we both, my wife and I, told them, look, we can't drive into a hurricane. Besides, they're going to close the park anyway, and then we're just going to be sitting around not doing anything because it's a storm outside. And we told our kids we would try again this year. And now Universal Studios Epic Universe Park is open, and they're super excited. And they've said, well, since we had to wait, at least we're getting to see the new park. So they're receiving a bigger blessing because we didn't go last year. Now, did we want to cancel it? No. And I think sometimes God might look at us and go, I really don't want to do this, but it's for your own good. And I think that's where, for this blog, the grit comes in. This is where we get to be stronger. I did not, to this day, if anybody ever tells me about a hard time they're going through, God's given me that no that He gave me to tell people, hey, I know it's rough right now, but it will get better. I think there's an old story about someone told a king, tell me a phrase that can make me happy and sad depending on when I say it. And the phrase was, this too shall pass. And meaning, when bad things are happening and you're not happy, someone says, this too shall pass, then that makes you happy because you're like, this is only a time, and then we're going to move forward to something else. On the flip side, when everything is going great, everything's not going to be great all the time. So when someone says, hey, this too shall pass, then that kind of makes us sad because we know it's not going to end. Think of like when you go on vacations. When Karen and I went to Ireland, we knew as the days were clicking, that was one less day we were going to get to spend together in Ireland. But I mean, it's a great memory. Looking back on it, it was fun. So that's great. So wrapping up, I want to acknowledge those of you who are going maybe through a no time in your life. I'm kind of going through a no time right now. It's not earth shattering or anything like that, but this is something. I'm a big picture, push buttons, ask questions later type of guy. And I really want something to happen quickly right now. And it's not. And I'm okay with that. I was asking God something the other day and about that situation, and God said, "Are you really prepared for me to answer that with a yes right now?" And I honestly answered him back, "Okay, yeah, no, I'm not ready for that." So it all works out. So also look at what might He be protecting you from. We all can probably remember, as sad as it is, when we were younger and we were dating, and we thought we were dating the one, and then something happened and we were devastated, like, I can't believe they broke up with me and stuff. And now looking back, or frankly when you've seen them out or something and you go, oh my gosh, okay, I dodged a bullet. God is in the protection business. He's always protecting us. One of the verses I think of is God having plans for the good for you, Romans 8:28. He's always looking out for you and looking out for your best, even when sometimes you might not think it's best for you at the time. In my experience, looking back on things, it's always been for the best for me when things I might have wanted, and God did say, no, this isn't for you. I've got a better plan. And that's what I would think I would suggest looking at when things don't go your way. Look at it and go, okay, maybe how can this be maybe there's a better situation. So to wrap it up, in a nutshell, God's no does not mean he's not good. It means he's God, and he sees what we can't. He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end of your story. He's writing your story, essentially. You just need to sometimes maybe take a step back and listen, like I do sometimes. Now, that's easier said than done, but it as my brother says, it is what it is. And sometimes I frankly would rather the control be in God's hands than mine, because a lot of times if I try to take control of things, I tend to mess things up. So thank you once again for tuning in to the Grit and Wit podcast. I'm Maury Wood. Remember, you can only control yourself, which is ironic in this one, because God is ultimately in control. So I think if we do His will and control ourselves, then we can get blessings for that. If you'd like to email me, my email, you can email me two ways. It's themaurywood@gmail.com or maury@gritandwit.net. Please check out my Substack. It's at gritandwit.substack.com. You can check us out on YouTube, like and subscribe and all that stuff. If you go to my Grit and Wit page, or if you follow me on Substack, or go to the Substack page, we now have Grit and Wit t-shirts if you are a t-shirt collector like me. So once again, thank you. I hope you have a good rest of your day or week, and we'll see you next time.
This was the Grit and Wit podcast, hosted by my dad, Maury Wood. Follow the show or share it, please, or he'll make us clean the garage.
What?
Bye.